To better serve communities, a very relevant goal is to increase library accessibility, and the main impediment is the arbitrary misconstruction of work as an adversary of disability. Prejudice against disabled workers silences their perspective, and if in those conditions acceptance proceeds to be elusive, it could be helpful to examine the ableism that impedes the library's overall purpose and objective to be inclusive. While many minorities are woefully, in spite of laws with the intent to free, susceptible to discrimination based on their identity, ableism may be more prevalent and socially acceptable. The devaluation of disability that oft fatigues is learned in schools where fear of illnesses as fragilities can cast mainly the doubt that punishes academics with disabilities for being ill and not keeping up with able-bodied colleagues in academia. Students must register for accommodations formally, embody physical illness and minimize an impediment's invisibility, perform a less disabled version of discontent, and make professors comfortable with their uniformity and affability. In spite of the understanding with which general view consists, university faculty possess generally positive attitudes toward accommodating disabled learners. Students are taught to disregard and dismiss people who are different, which persists upon graduating. Librarians can have depths of compassion to speak from, however, more often than not, such empathy and patience are not formally taught in library graduate programs, which leaves some with apathy. A disabled library employee has felt guilt for even asking for accommodation for illness unseen to those who practice discrimination. Nevertheless, great value can be built from stillness. A mentor told her, to employers the value of physical strength they find she may lack is not worth as much as her mind, and to never let what her body could not do hold her back. An ableist professional ideal that places responsibility on the individual to be resilient fails to leave room for the skills of an employee that may in fact be brilliant. Not only are many of Canada's disabled workers educated and skilled in spite of the hate, their productivity, accurateness, commitment, loyalty, and satisfaction are greater, along with the fact that their problem solving shows further creativity. This is because they are coping with sometimes difficult personal situations in environments that are not always meant to accommodate their specific requirements. In spite of the benefits of an inclusive team, many employers are unaware of this and hesitate to award a call to disabled applicants, according to consultants who advocate for disabled workers who, to some, might seem unaffordable. The accommodations feared as destroyers of budgets workplaces don't want impacted, in reality are oft low cost to employers and can be adapted for different needs without affecting the employer's frugality. Though it may seem hard through the ableism of a quietly unforgiving workplace that rejects the inclusivity of minds and hearts expanding to understand it, empowering disabled workers certainly helps in better understanding customers with disabilities, which constitute 1/7 of the people living on the planet. An ableist library setting insufficiently engages disabled library patrons, no matter how it may have tried, hence a disconnect between what libraries have or will provide and what is documented on their accessibility web pages stems from this neglect. While it is possible to consult disabled library patrons to learn more about their varied needs through surveys, it's insufficient, perhaps, without people for whom disability is in view always. Rather than constant outside feedback, a space on a team created once is more efficient. Although the challenge of creating accessible library spaces is complex and multifaceted and includes degrees of intersectionality, if it entails educating and strengthening communities, a library is perfectly positioned to ensure these goals it faces are conquered systematically. Libraries exist to fight ableism and discrimination everywhere, and rather than leaving accessibility an illusion, to destroy these. As champions of diversity and inclusion, libraries also need to focus on inclusiveness for their employees. Having this conversation is part of the solution, so thank you for lending me a moment of your mind, and I believe it's only with your voice that our world can be redesigned, so please write a comment to add to the discussion before you leave. Does your experience match the studies that critique education on disability, or are there aspects that you are content to know? Which facet of accommodation that you could learn new leaves you with the most interest piqued? Comment below. Personally, my response would be that I learn more from life experience than what I've been taught on acceptance. And because I love languages, I've always thought learning to sign could help me further earn interdependence.